Welcome to the live Unscripted podcast with Rosabel, the place where genuine conversations meet inspiring stories, personal growth, and a dash of humor. I'm Rosabel, your host, inviting you to embrace life's unpredictable journey. Celebrate your unique story and find joy in everyday moments. Get comfortable, stay curious, and let's explore together. Unscripted, unapologetic, and unstoppable. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Life Unscripted podcast with Rosabel, where we have real conversations, unscripted, and it's about the heart of being human. So I'm your host, Rosabel Sofel, and today we have someone here. His name is David Rust. Hello, David.
Hi.
It's good to meet you. Good to have you here. David, you are someone who brings both clinical expertise and you also have lived some of these experiences that we were going to be discussing during our conversation. David, he's a licensed clinical social worker. He's also a certified case manager, and he's also the founder of Rust Wellness Group. With over 15 years in mental health, David supports individuals navigating anxiety, depression, and life transitions, all through a person-centered solution focused in strength-based approach. So, David, why don't you take us into what led you into the world of mental health and social work?
Yeah, I think what led me here was I've always wanted to help people. I know that's a cliche thing that a lot of therapists always say, but it's true. I always wanted to help people work through issues. Even as a kid, I used to be a good listener. I used to listen to friends around me and help them with all of their issues or concerns. And that led me to kind of want to go to social work school and eventually be a therapist. My first job out of therapy school was working in a hospital. And that's kind of where I got my feet wet and what it was like to help people on a professional level. I worked in organ transplant for about 10 years doing organ transplant evaluations. We call them biopsychosocial evaluations, where we would determine psychologically if somebody was fit to have an organ transplant. I really, really enjoyed that field and being able to help people not only overcome their own mental health concerns, but be able to have them change their life medically, right? Because we're giving them an organ to prolong their life. After doing that for 10 years, I decided, let me start my own practice and see kind of where that would go. In 2019, I opened Rust Wellness Group. Now has about 10 therapists in this group. And that's kind of like my trajectory in the mental health and medical field.
Very good, very good. And David, you have spoken openly about your own experience with burnout. And so this is such an important topic, especially in today's day and age, because we're so busy and there's just so much going on. Can you tell us what was the turning point that turned you to make a change?
Well, I think the biggest turning point for me, but I think I first want to go back just for a moment, explain what is stress and what is burnout. They are different. They're not the same. I think in society, we confuse the two quite often.
Yes.
Stress is, let's say, for instance, I'm giving a speech. So before the speech, I feel stressed. I feel maybe a little bit overwhelmed. And then after the speech is done, I feel relieved, right? I feel okay. I feel happy that it's over. Maybe I do a work project and I'm stressed about that work project, but then the project ends and I feel better. I feel relieved. I feel happy that it's over. Now, burnout is different, right? Because burnout's more chronic and prolonged stress. So it is like I did a work project that lasts for long periods of time. It's really stressful, very overwhelming, no end to that. And over time, I'm burned out from that. You will often see people, maybe you work with them, maybe you don't, people who tend to be cynical at work, detached from their work. You'll tend to see people who have insomnia, more sickness or colds because of their burnout. They tend to feel depressed over time because of burnout and apathetic. So those are kind of the symptoms you will see of people who have burnout. And how that led me to myself and all of that is when I was working at the hospital setting, I would see a lot of clients, a lot of patients all the time who had heavy needs. And I was dealing with their heavy psychosocial needs. And over time, that kind of made me feel burned out from the stress and being overwhelmed with helping them through their struggles and getting them to the point where they can have an organ eventually. So that led me to kind of leave the hospital setting, to be honest there. That led me to kind of want to move on because I felt burned out over time about it. I felt more cynical about what I was doing, I think, there. And that led me to start my mental health practice. And to be honest, that also kind of burned me out, right? When you are in social work school, they don't teach you how to build a business, right? How to be an entrepreneur, how to set that up. So I was working about, I would say, about 70 hours a week, building my practice, from getting clients to after the first year, hiring about 10 therapists to work for the practice, and onboarding all of these people, dealing with referrals, dealing with growing. And I was doing that probably, I will say, about 70 hours a week. And that led me to almost want to, about 2 years into the practice, almost want to leave it, to be honest. I was burned out. I was feeling really cynical about helping people. I was feeling really overwhelmed with the amount of work that I had to do on a given day. I didn't want to do it anymore. I wanted to sell the practice or give it up. And that's kind of my journey with burnout, how it's really impacted me personally, in my road to being an entrepreneur in mental health.
Wow. Yeah. And for some reason, like I mentioned to you sometime earlier, there's often a sense of pride in overworking, especially when in our profession, in healthcare. But why do you think burned out has become such a normalized part of success? And how can we begin to shift the narrative?
Yeah, I think actually a really great question. I think we often believe, especially in our society, I'm speaking about the United States, is that the harder you work, the more successful you will be, the more money you'll make, the more things you'll do, that you'll become a manager, a director, a CEO. And that leads people to work harder, to work more. You'll see this a lot you see with a lot of doctors, you'll see this a lot with lawyers, business people who work 90 to 100 hours a week because that's what we think is going to make us most successful. Perfectionists tend to be people who will burn out the most because what happens is they want everything to be perfect, high achieving, always working hard. But in the end, it actually burns you out because you can't sustain that kind of work over and over and over and over and over again without having a break or taking a step back from all of that to recover in some way.
Absolutely. And that is where I think boundaries come into play. And my other question to you, and you can help us guide us through this, why it is so hard to set boundaries, especially at work, for example, or walk us through what it would look like.
Yeah, I think that I think one of the biggest issues with people setting boundaries with themselves, right? The biggest thing people miss about what boundaries actually are is there are things that boundaries or rules that we have for ourselves, not we have for other people, we have for ourselves. And I think people confuse that when they say, I have these boundaries or rules for you. No, that's not a boundary. A boundary is how we take care of ourselves and the rules that we have for ourselves in some way. I think we're taught a lot in the American industries not to have boundaries, right? To work overtime, to work your weekends, to handle 45 projects at one time. And we think that's normal to do so. And that's not normal to do so because as human beings, we need rest, we need time to recover. And that doesn't usually happen in these high performing businesses. I live in New York City here, and this is very prominent in New York City where you'll see a lot of people overworking, burning out, having poor boundaries with themselves because the pressure of the city to work so much. And I'll speak from my own experience in that as a mental health provider and a health provider myself is that we're taught kind of like We tell our clients all the time to have boundaries and take care of yourself, but we don't do that, right? So we tell our clients to take time off, to build a better schedule. But as mental health providers, we don't do that often for ourselves. We tend to take on too many clients. We tend to answer emails when we shouldn't be. We tend to deal with so many referrals, poor boundaries with ourselves and our clients around us because we want to help them so much. In the helping profession, one of the things we're taught is we need to help people, right? So we need to help people, but how are we helping ourselves in all of that? I think that's what
Absolutely.
we struggle so much with.
Yeah, and then also the communication, me being a healthcare provider myself, a lot of times what I encounter, not always necessarily, I encounter patients that somehow also there's this expectation that I like them to see me also as a human, someone who also has, lead by example is also very, very important as well. Me personally, for example, when I tell a patient, hey, you need to exercise, you need to do this, I want to make sure that I'm also doing those things because if I don't, I feel like a hypocrite. How do I, for example, how do I tell a patient, hey, you need to, for example, stop smoking, but then here I am smoking myself. So those kind of things. But at the same time, is every time I tell my patients, especially neuro, I reinforce the fact that sleep is very important, rest. And then I always check on myself, am I doing this? Because I'm not a machine, and so it's how we open the conversation also with patients. Well, how do we lay the expectations, on those things? And so definitely, and here's another question I have for you. How do you how do you approach or how do you help someone that perhaps it's feeling overwhelmed and feeling empowered to help regain control over their life once again?
Yeah, I think that's such an interesting question too, is because how people who are feeling overwhelmed regain kind of being able to take care of themselves, right? And be able to live a better life for themselves. I think understanding what am I doing every day? I'm going to use work as an example. What am I doing at work every day? Am I skipping my lunch? Am I starting work early and not giving myself that time in the morning to hey, listen to a podcast maybe, or to read a book, or to exercise, or to sleep better, to be able to do those things for myself. And then after work, be able to make a healthy meal that I want to for myself, be able to separate myself from my job and do things that I enjoy. The first step is acknowledging it, acknowledging I feel overwhelmed. I feel that something is not right. I feel that I'm tired and burned out in some way from what's happening in my life. And I have to make changes, right? We have to also understand and then want to make the change that needs to be made. I think that's what a lot of people struggle with is making the actual behavioral changes they need to make to be successful with having a better life for themselves because we feel we shouldn't make those changes because how is it going to affect other people around me when I do make them? So I tell a lot of my clients who are feeling burned out or overwhelmed, write down what am I doing all day? What are my tasks all day that I'm doing? What's on my schedule for myself? And do I need to be doing those things all day? And how do I fit in parts of there to help myself and my life there? I think I took that on advice myself, right? I wrote down my tasks that I did all day long. What was I doing in the morning? What was I doing after work? And how can I better manage my life for myself in some way to live better for myself? I don't know if
Right.
you see, but I do. People who tend to say, I can't work out, I can't eat healthy, can't take my lunch, can't go to bed on time. They'll tell you all the things they can't do. And I always say, can you not do that or you won't do that?
Right. That's exactly. That is absolutely. And then here's the other thing. When we begin to understand that if we are well for ourselves, then we can be better for others. We can actually help other people much better. We can give our 100% when we are better
I agree with
ourselves.
that. Yeah, that's
Yes.
100%. I agree with that, right? If we are telling our clients to sleep, relax, take care of themselves, but we're not doing any of that, how are we showing up for them? Right? How are we showing up for ourselves? We can't be our best self if we're not taking care of ourselves.
Absolutely. And what is a myth about therapy or emotional healing that perhaps you like to break here right now?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest myths that I hear all the time and clients are resistant to therapy is that you come to therapy and we're going to change you. That's not our job to change you. Our job is to help you understand what's going on in your life for you to make those changes. Right. There are some therapies or some things that in therapy that we really are precise and constructed with when it comes to, well, I'll say OCD treatment or certain treatments that follow certain protocols that we want you to follow and do all the time because that really helps you overcome or work with OCD. But we're not trying to, as therapists, change you. It's not about us. It's about you and how you can make the steps to make those changes in your life if you choose to. I think that's
Yeah,
one of the big things I hear all the time as therapists. They're going to change me. No, that's not our role to change you.
it's about empowering. It's about giving you
Yes.
the tools so you can actually, because the best work is the one that we do ourselves, not the one that somebody does for us. That's just the way I see things.
If
Because
I'm
it's,
telling you, yeah, if
yes,
I'm telling you how to change your life, well, then you're not doing it on your own. You're not learning those things you need to for yourself to make the changes. I always tell clients, you're the bus driver, I'm the passenger. I'm the passenger on the bus, and you're the new bus driver. And I'm telling you how to weave around those cones and how to help yourself
right.
be a bus driver. But you're in control of that bus, not me.
Absolutely. And for someone who's listening right now, they are feeling exhausted, stuck in toxic cycles, whatever it is, what is a message that you can give them?
I think a message is listen to yourself. I'm in this toxic cycle. I'm feeling really overwhelmed. What is my body trying to tell me? What is my mind trying to tell me? If I keep going down this road that I'm going, what's going to happen to me? Is my life going to be better or worse over time if I keep going down this road? I think when clients realize I can't keep going this way, that's when they know they can make that change.
Absolutely. Yes. And David, anything that I have not asked you that perhaps you're like, you would like to our listeners to know?
Yeah, I think one other thing I think I want our listeners to know is how to set boundaries. And we talk about boundaries, we talk about them all the time. I think there's a great author on boundaries. Her name is Nidra Tawwab. I don't want to butcher her name. If I did, I'm so sorry. It is Set Boundaries, Find Peace. She's a great person. She's written a couple books on boundaries, and they're phenomenal on how to set boundaries and understand boundaries with yourself and understand boundaries with toxic family members in your life. I think one thing that I learned myself to set a boundary to be successful in my own practice was setting times, right? I would get up in the morning, I have my breakfast, I go to the gym, and then I start work. Work is not my primary focus in the morning. I have to do those things first. Then I carve out a lunch for myself during the day. That 1 hour to eat a good meal to really reset myself for the rest of the day. I work out of my home. My practice is my home. I have a separate room in my apartment that doubles as my office. So at the end of the day, when I'm done with work, I do a 10-minute mindful meditation to kind of release the day from myself. And then I close my door and my laptop. And I do not use that room unless I am working. That was my boundary with myself, was if I'm in that room, I'm working. If I'm not in that room, I am not working. So that kind of separated my work and private space. A lot of us work from home now because of the pandemic. So people are working from home still. And there's poor boundaries, right? Because I sit on my sofa and I work on my computer and then I don't kind of separate that space for myself. Even if I don't have a separate room, I close the laptop and put the laptop somewhere else in my apartment so that I don't look at it and don't work. Also, I think another thing that I learned and a lot of people do struggle with is being able to not answer emails after work hours, right? I think we struggle with that so much, right? With a
Yes.
society now with technology so used, we can use it anywhere we need to. We get dings on our Slack or Teams or emails, and we're checking them all hours of the day after work. Even if, clients tell me all the time, I'm checking, oh, it's just a simple email. I'm just checking that for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, now you're still working, right? We're back in the work mode, back working again. We're not allowing ourselves to fully step away from the work itself. And that's something that I did. I put do not disturb on my phone after a certain period of time. So no emails come through and no messages come through on my phone through work related stuff. So I can be present with my partner, be present with my life outside of work. I think that my last boundary that I set for myself and people can also use themselves is before I say yes to something, before I say yes to a new client, before I say yes to a new project, before I say yes to a new thing that I take on, I want to say to myself, is this something I really want to do? Is this going to deplete my energy to the point where it's going to burn me out that I can't handle other tasks in my life? And if I say no to those things, then I will then take on that task and then I will do it. Right. And then I will then relax after it's done. But if I say it's going to burn me out, it's going to be overwhelming, then I'm not going to take that on at this point. Maybe in the future I will, but today I won't do that. And those are some boundaries people can use for themselves, right? We're told to have poor boundaries, especially in the health and mental health setting. We're told to have poor boundaries. We need to take that back for ourselves to understand what's good for us and not good for us.
Absolutely. Yes. Such a practical advice. And let me tell you, I can attest to that, that when I make those changes myself, there's a difference. Now I can't sleep because again, and there are tools out there. All this, just like if you have Teams or EMRs or things, they have tools when you can actually schedule when it shows when you're available. Do not disturb from this time to this time. Our smartphones can do that. My phone, for example, it goes on sleep mode from this time to this time. So whatever call comes in, I'll check it later. So my phone does not, I do not get disturbed for a phone, I promise. Yes, it's important because,
I think it's very, very important because we have such poor boundaries with social media now and poor
yes,
boundaries with our phones, and our companies rely on us to do that, right? They know you are going to answer your emails late at night. They know you're going to do those things. So therefore they'll send emails 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, because most people are going to answer them. And then that leads to burnout.
right.
One thing I also want to mention here is burnout and stress are different when it comes to taking time off. I hear this all the time. Clients and other people tell me, well, if I take a week vacation, my burnout's going to be better. I'm going to come back to work. I'm going to be great. That works for stress, right? Because stress, again, as I said, it's a short time limited thing. When it comes to stress, you take your week vacation, you come back, you're ready to go. You can come back to work, take on new tasks. Burnout, when you come back to a week vacation or so, you don't feel ready to go. You still feel
Right.
apathy. You still feel dread. You still feel depressed having to come back to that environment. So I think people feel if I just take a week off, my burnout will go away. That's not the case. I see clients who burn out all the time. And I'm sad to say this, but burnout can take 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 4 or 5 months to actually recover from. It's not a week vacation where you're going to recover from burnout, unfortunately.
Yeah, and also it takes making changes because you have to go to the root of the problem. Because it's kind of like when, let's say, you get better and then you go back to the same environment, same problem, same thing. You get back into the same slump that you were in before, if not even worse, because it's recurrent. So yeah, it takes going deep and finding out what is the root of the cause, how can you make meaningful changes, right? Whether it's talking to your bosses, rearranging certain things, even sometimes rearranging your work schedule or things of that nature.
Yeah, I totally get exactly true. Going to the root of these concerns are really what help, right? If we want to look at more trauma-based therapy and those types of things, we often want to look at why don't I want to create boundaries for myself? Do I deserve them? In my childhood, was I not able to create boundaries? So therefore, I feel my needs don't matter. So therefore, I don't create boundaries with myself. And then I get into this vicious cycle of burnout. People who people please, you'll often see burn out because they feel they shouldn't have needs. And, people pleasing is a whole nother topic to talk about.
Right.
Pleasing usually comes from an early childhood response to our family in some aspect. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, David. And before we even wrap up, can you tell our listeners where they can connect with you, how they can find you?
Yeah, you can connect with us at rustwellnessgroup.com. We are also on Instagram. I have a marketing team who we do posts every week about certain topics that we love. We create videos on talking points or topics that are important to us to help our listeners be able to help and change their life. And that's Rust Wellness Group on Instagram. It's also Rust Wellness Group on Facebook. Yes. And if you want to reach out for a referral in any way or connect with us or have questions for us, you can reach right out to our website again at rustwellnessgroup.com.
Perfect. David, thank you so much for being here today, for sharing your insights, your expertise. And another one, something else I wanted to mention here is perhaps, like you said, your message about burnout is not necessarily that burned out is a badge of honor, but boundaries are not selfish. And also, it can, when we discover that, when we realize, when we are able to recognize what we're dealing with, then we can make again meaningful changes. And so again, if you want to connect with David or learn more about the incredible work that he's doing, visit him at www.roswellnessgroup.com. And then you can also explore his services and reach out for perhaps personalized mental health support. Of course, don't forget to connect with me and subscribe to the podcast. Now, David, I would love to invite you to, if you want to come back again, and perhaps we can discuss other topics, related to mental health. I would love to, because there's so much that we can definitely talk. And I can see that you have so much practical advice that people can apply to their daily lives. So thank you so
Yeah,
much for being
let's
here.
come back. Let's come back to talk about more topics I think that are meaningful to give people information that they can use in their life to help themselves. That's what we do as therapists.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. And thank you, everybody. So until next time, take care of your mind, your heart, and your truth. See you on the next episode and stay unscripted. Thank you.
Bye bye.
All right. I want to invite you, yes, you listening right now, to check out my book, The Courage to Succeed at True American Dream. It is available now on Amazon and also Barnes & Noble. This is a story of resilience, grit, and what it really means to change your dreams, to chase your dreams, even when the odds are stacked against you. If you ever face fear, failure, or uncertainty, this book will meet you right there and remind you that courage always has a voice. Just search The Courage to Succeed at True American Dream by Rosabel on Amazon, or head to the link in the show notes, because your dream is worth it and your courage can take you there.